Thank you for being here. Just make a couple of comments. Obviously, we've gotten at least a look at the more complete list of the items that will be included in the sales tax list. We don't think that's quite complete yet. There's some controversy over some of the things that were not quite clear. Daycare being one, I think real estate transactions being another. We haven't gotten direct answers. And a number of other things that are being listed as examples, but we're not sure it's an exhaustive list. But again, to reiterate, the governor's budget, $3.5 billion of new taxes, $225 million of reductions in spending. This is what the governor calls a balanced approach to solve a slightly over $1 billion budget problem. So you got a $1 billion problem, and you're raising $3.5 billion of new revenue and reducing spending by 225. That's the balanced approach to solve a $1 billion problem. That doesn't add up to me. I don't think it adds up in the minds of the people of the state of Minnesota. And he talks about this as investment. And I think the question we should be asking is, what are you investing in, Governor? What is the thing that we're going to do with the $3.5 billion that is going to make Minnesota better, that is going to be an improvement in services or improvement in things that we do as a state, that people are going to look at and say, we've made the state better. We have really done something. We've spent $3.5 billion. We have made an improvement. What is that going to be? The single biggest thing in the budget is the $1.4 billion in property tax shift. Now, Senator Bach called the other day in his press conference. He said this was historic tax relief, tax cuts for property tax. It's not a tax cut. No taxes were reduced by this. No property taxes have been reduced at all. The taxes have stayed the same. All we're doing, the governor's proposing, is shifting who pays for these taxes. Those local property taxes were put in place by locally elected officials, elected by local people, sometimes by referendum. They voted them on themselves. They're paying them. Now they're going to be paid by somebody else. But the taxes themselves are not changing. So these are not tax cuts. This is a tax shift. And this is $1.4 billion of the governor's proposal, is to shift the burden of property taxes to someone else. It's not a tax cut. $1.1 billion in new income taxes on the wealthy. This was what the governor ran on. We're going to tax the rich, tax the wealthy, make them pay their fair share, even though top 10% of income taxpayers in the state of Minnesota account for over 50, almost 55% of the total revenues that come into the state come from that top 10%. The argument is it's not fair. I understand that there are many, or at least some, DFLers who are not quite on board with that new tax rate yet. We'll see how many stick with the governor on that. Had a meeting yesterday with one of the CEOs of a Minnesota company who said, again, that these high income tax rates are not helpful to businesses. They are not helpful in terms of attracting and retaining talent to the state of Minnesota. And they are not going to help us in comparison to other states in our surrounding area. Property taxes, the thing the governor is focusing on in his budget, Minnesota's about average. When you look around at other states, in fact, we're a little bit better than some of our surrounding states. Income taxes were very high. So we're going to raise our income taxes, and we're going to try to do some things to shift who pays the property taxes. The sales tax, biggest chunk of the new taxes are on the sales taxes. I heard yesterday that Senator Bach is talking about allowing out-of-state folks that come in and Mall of America, maybe they don't pay the sales tax. So people from Bloomington who go to the mall, they pay the sales tax increases. Out-of-state people don't. I'm not sure if that makes sense to me or anybody else in the state. Why would we say we have a sales tax, but people from out of state don't pay it? People in the state do pay it. I don't think that makes any sense at all. And I also don't understand the argument that we're going to get $2 billion of increases in the sales tax revenue, but nobody's going to pay more. Somebody help me figure that out. I've heard them say this over and over again, that nobody's going to pay more in sales taxes, but somehow the state is going to collect $2 billion more. If someone can help me understand how that works, I'd be happy to learn that. But again, I think the important question for the people of the state is, how does all this increase in spending, an increase in taxation, how does this improve what the state is doing? That's the question. This is called an investment. How does it make things better? To me, to us, in our caucus, this is simply a massive increase in spending, a massive increase in taxation to do exactly what we're doing today, only do it more and more expensively.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Mic Day at the Capitol, right? To add on to what Senator Hann said, obviously the budget was the big news this week. We in the House as well, and the House Republicans have concerns about the governor's budget. We listened to the governor over the last couple of years call the budget that we passed an all-cuts budget. Interesting to see that in our all-cuts budget, we actually raised as much and maybe more revenue than the governor will in his all-tax budget. Obviously concerning. At that time, the governor said that he wanted to see a balanced approach. And what we've seen that the governor's balanced approach actually means is $16 of tax revenue, tax increases for every $1 in cuts. So this certainly isn't a balanced approach, and it certainly doesn't address or make the tax code any simpler. So a lot of problems with what he's doing to the tax code in that as well. I was a little bit dismayed to hear Senator Hayden say that they would have a similar approach, that the legislature would have a similar approach to the governor's, and I guess we'd like to know if that means that we'll also see all of the efforts here on revenues and no attention paid to reductions in spending. So, that's obviously a concern for us. I'll also note that, only in St. Paul do we think that spending more money from one year to the next is a cut. We haven't seen cuts in the past, and we spent more money in the last budget than we had in the previous, and the governor's going to have more money and the legislature's going to have more money this time to spend than we did over the last couple of years. So we need to stop referring to it as a cut in that sense. When you're spending more money, you're not cutting. We're also, very disappointed to see that the governor isn't addressing what we feel is the number one priority. I was encouraged also to hear Representative Aaron Murphy say that it was their priority as well to pay back the school shift. There's some serious problems with the governor's proposal as it relates to education funding. We're putting more money on the formula. I think he's saying that he's going to increase K-12 education funding by $340 million, but yet we're not paying back the shift. And on top of that, by not paying it back, we're actually increasing the debt to schools by $151 million. So half of the money that the governor is saying that he's paying to schools by increasing the formula, we're actually increasing the shift, and you can see that in his own budget. He says it goes from 1.1 to 1.2. The real number, according to our calculations, is $151 million more that we're going to add in debt on the shift by not addressing it in the current biennium. So we're very disappointed in that. We hope that the legislature will handle that in a more appropriate and responsible manner than the governor has in his budget. So, and really, we hope to work with the Democrats in the legislature to accomplish that. In the House yesterday, we had our first vote on the insurance exchange. On the insurance exchange bill. Republicans obviously have concerns. I've said numerous times over the last month that the insurance exchange bill would be an early opportunity and maybe a litmus test to see if the Democrats are willing to work with Republicans. We hope that they will. We hope that will be a bipartisan product that comes out. The vote yesterday did not indicate that. Every Democrat voted for the bill. Every Republican in the House voted against it. And we've got two Republicans who are authors on the bill, voted against it and said that in its current form, they could not support this bill. So this is not a good example of starting off in a bipartisan fashion, and we hope that the Democrats will, if they want to live up to their commitment to us to make this a bipartisan bill, we hope that they will come to the table, bring us to the table, and really work in a bipartisan fashion to come up with a product that's going to be best for Minnesota. That's what we care about, and we hope that they do too. But right now, this was a very good example that this is not a bipartisan bill. Every Republican voted against it. So it's not a bill that even the bill authors, who are Republicans who signed on, that hope that they can move this in the right direction, not even they could vote for this bill. So coming up in the next week, we'll have the governor's budget will be up in Ways and Means and Taxes coming up, I think, on starting right away on Monday. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses and how the I'm also interested to see how the Democrats are going to respond to the governor's budget as well. So we'll see how those hearings go in those committees. And then just wanted to point out a couple of other problems that I see with the governor's budget currently. In the LGA numbers, he's done some increases in LGA. Again, we've been very concerned about the whether rural Minnesota is going to get left behind in the governor's budget. Some very good examples just in the LGA numbers if you take a look at that. I pulled out just one example of a city in my district, St. Francis, the city of St. Francis. From our budget to the governor's budget, the city of St. Francis will see a $50,000 decrease to the amount of LGA they receive. Doesn't sound like a lot. It's 20% of the money they receive. So that's obviously alarming. At the same time, the city of Minneapolis will see a $12 million increase in the first year of that LGA. So, in the first biennium. So. Obviously concerning, and another example of how rural Minnesota probably continuing to get left behind in the DFL's budget. So I think with that we can probably stand for some questions.
Could you be a little more specific on the shift? How would Republicans pay that back more quickly if you don't have new revenues and there is a deficit projected?
Certainly, and I think that it's a really good example to just look at what we did over the last couple of years. I mean, we took a $6.2 billion deficit. We didn't raise taxes. And we ended up with what adds up to about a $2.5 billion surplus. Another example, the way that happens is increased economic activity. You can increase revenue to the state without raising taxes. And I think the Democrats and the governor shouldn't be ignoring what happened over the last couple of years. And we have warned that if you increase taxes, and I know the governor promised to increase taxes on the top 2%. We shouldn't be surprised that happened. But he also increased taxes on every other Minnesotan. And really, it's middle-class Minnesotans that are going to bear the brunt of the governor's tax increases with the sales tax and all of the other things that are happening in his budget. Businesses very often they almost always pass those costs on to, in the business-to-business taxes, they're going to pass those on to their customers. And it's middle-class Minnesotans, when they're buying products, not only are they going to pay sales tax on services and products that they haven't in the past, but they're going to pay higher costs because businesses are going to have a higher cost of doing business in Minnesota. But back to your question about paying back the shift, it's because of those revenues increasing and coming in above projections over the last couple of years that we've paid down the shift as far as we have. We inherited a shift 2 years ago of $1.7 billion. Today it's 1.1. We picked up another $114 million of additional revenue just in December. So our economy's headed in the right direction. Anything that we take in over and above our revenues is automatically going to pay back the shift. And we're going to see that number lower because of those revenues in December, and hopefully we'll see some additional revenue come in above projections before the next forecast comes out. So we'll see that pay down hopefully more. But frankly, we have enough money in reserves right now to pay off the shift with the money that's sitting there. So
Republicans were in charge of the legislature when this most recent shift was put into place. So are you saying that you're just expecting more revenue to come in? You wouldn't do anything different to pay down the shift if you were in charge right now?
My point is that revenues have been coming in higher than projection, and I don't think that we need to react so quickly to that. If we sent the governor a bill that would have paid a good portion of the shift back out of reserves the last session, and he vetoed that. So his priority then wasn't paying the shift back. It's not paying the shift back now, as demonstrated in his budget.
So you would use the current reserves?
I think we could use the reserves. I think there's some other options on the table too, but we need to address paying back the shift. And I think I'm glad to hear that Aaron Murphy is committed to that as well. But
what are the other options that you just mentioned?
I don't know if you want to jump in as well. I think there's a lot of things that we can do, and obviously this is a bigger picture than just.
You said there are other options, and you also said look to what you guys did in the past. What you did in the past was use one-time money from the tobacco borrowing that helped kind of make the budget outlook better. So what are the other options that you're suggesting?
Well, we've got a $1.1 billion deficit right now. We've got a shift that needs to be paid back that's also about $1 billion. We've got $1 billion in reserves in the cash flow accounts that we put there. Those were zero when we took control 2 years ago. And we've got additional revenue that continues to come in. So because of what we've done over the last couple of years, remember, the shift is supposed to be $2.4 billion right now. It's not. We didn't raise taxes to take it from 2.4 down to 1.1. Additional revenue continued to come in. And the statutes right now say that any additional revenue that comes in is going to go to pay off the shift. So we can pay some of it off with reserves if we want to. There's certainly some money there, and money is going to continue to come in because of increased economic activity. Now, if we put the governor's budget into place, we're going to have increased taxes on businesses, on middle-class Minnesotans, on just about everybody. That's not going to help us grow the economy in Minnesota, and we're not going to see revenues come in over projections with the governor's budget. It's going to harm the economy, and these are exactly the kinds of things we've been warning against. So, yes, it's a priority for us to pay back the shift, but we also know that if we increase taxes the way the governor's proposing to do it, it's not going to help us accomplish that. It's going to harm Minnesota's economy, and it's going to make it more difficult for people to find good work and good paying work in Minnesota.
I would say that, in my opinion, the best way to pay off the shift is to continue to not allow the state budget to overspend the revenues and to focus on doing the things that will encourage the economy to grow and, as the current statutes require, use the revenue in excess of the budget to restore and repay that shift. That's what the statutes require, and as Representative Daudt has indicated, we have made great progress in the last year and a half, and we've repaid the bulk of the shift that has been enacted, most of it by the DFL, but the $700 million by our budget 2 years ago has been fully repaid. So I think that is the best approach to do that. I think, frankly, in the last campaign, I think the Democrats really overplayed this issue in the sense of demagoguing the effect of the shift and talking about how harmful this has been. If you go out, and I was at the AMSD meeting a week ago, 2 weeks ago, which is all the metro area school districts, finance people, superintendents, and I asked them how important paying back the shift was. Not a single hand went up in the room. This is not a high priority in the education world. And I think that they understand that the effect of the shift is a one-year deal. We've already paid the price, if you will, of that shift. And I think right now the prudent thing to do is allow the economy to recover. And the worst thing we can do is add $3.5 billion of additional taxes onto the economy. That is the thing that is going to slow down the ability for us to repay the shift. And I think that's the main point, is we don't want to do that. We want to allow the economy to recover and allow those recovering economic activity to restore the shift back to the 90-10 structure that is the way it should be.
So, Senator Hann, would your caucus disagree with the idea that Representative Daudt has
No,
expressed?
not entirely. There's a variety of opinions. There are some who in our caucus who think, well, we could do it more aggressively. And we did have a bill last year that would have taken some of the reserve money and paid it back. And I think it just depends on whether or not there's a political appetite to say, do you want the money in reserves to be used to restore the shift? Do you want to do that? That's an option. And I would say we could do that, and that's certainly an option. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but that's an option. Because, again, if you do that and your economy continues to grow, where does that money go? It goes back into the reserves. So it's a sort of, taking it out of one bucket, putting it in another, and it's more of a what is the option that you prefer. But I think the key is, from our perspective, is we do not want to do things that are going to disrupt or impede the economic recovery that we think is essential. The growth in the economy is the key thing. You need to have that to do these things. And what the governor is proposing is going to, we believe, put an impediment on that growth and is not going to allow this to happen.
Senator, which CEO did you meet with?
I don't know that I want to talk about specifics. I don't know that that's fair.
The governor's saying that he's meeting today with the 3M CEO. Isn't it important?
Well, I don't have permission. I don't have permission to reveal that. I met in my office with a CEO of a major corporation. I can certainly talk to that person and ask if they would be willing to do that. But I've met with, in the last week, several CEOs who have made the same point, that personal income taxes, raising personal income taxes, are not a good idea. And I know Senator Bach disagrees, but he apparently hasn't talked to these people, or maybe he's talking to other people. But they will tell you that high personal income taxes are not helpful when you're trying to recruit people to come to Minnesota. They are not helpful.
You met with several CEOs. Could you give us the name of all of those, and if you're going to use examples of CEOs?
Well, as I said, I will use examples if they allow me to use their name, but I also know that many members of the private sector. They not necessarily want to be engaged in the public, and I let them, but I will certainly ask if they're
Why should we believe you if you're not going to tell us the names, or if you're, I mean...
Ask Senator
that's
Bach who he
kind of
talks to. Does he give you the
We
names
do.
of people? Okay. Does he? I haven't heard any names from him. So when he starts revealing the names of who he talks to, I'll do my best. I'll try to find out if they're willing to let me use their names. I'm just reluctant to use people's names in private conversations unless they have given me permission. That's my point. I'm happy to do it if they're willing to let me use their name.
But if you're going to use those names with us,
I'm not using their names. I'm just saying that I have talked to CEOs who have told me that, and if they're willing to let me use their names, I'll be happy to do it. And if Senator Bach is willing to share the names of the people he's talked to, then he should do that. But I haven't heard any names from Senator Bach. So if you have, let me know. Any other questions?
How do you feel about having a bust of Harry Blackmun on the U.S.
I don't have a feeling one way or the other. I didn't know there was a controversy over that. He's a Supreme Court justice. Where's the controversy, I guess? I don't know. I've not heard of
so
that.
if the bill came before the Senate, you would vote for it to put the bust in?
I don't, why would there be a bill? I don't even know. I don't know what the controversy, I don't know what the issue is. The first I've heard of it was when Representative Murphy said about it. So I have no idea what the issue is or what the...
We authored Roe v. Wade, which MCCL doesn't like. So that's
Oh,
been the
issue?
controversy over the years.
Oh, okay.
They said at the time, when the first time they tried to do this in 2000, they said he was, and I quote, worse than Hitler.
No worse. Well, one thing I've learned is that you never use that comparison in public about anybody. So I don't know about that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Are you all going to be in 14A or 19A in the special elections this weekend? Do we have a
Absolutely.
vote?
Probably.
Yeah, I think we'll have some of our members involved as well. We're very much interested in trying to help our friends in the House. We think it's important, and we'll help too.
It's election season. Like it or not.